Hello, welcome to Human in the Loop episode 2. I'm here with our CEO, Andy Berg.
Good to see you, Jamie.
Thanks, mate. And we're going to talk today about AI agents, or collaborators as we call them, why we use them at Rhapsody, how we built them. Let's get into it. Okay, so the first question really that we need to explore is why did we decide to build AI agents or AI collaborators instead of just using the LLMs? Why would we build our own ones and what's different about them?
Firstly, that wasn't an instant answer. It wasn't something that we just said, oh, we're definitely doing this AI agent route. We investigated all sorts of different angles, just using tools as most people were. But we came to the conclusion that at Rhapsody, the thing that we're really passionate about is us as a team. And the people are what make this business. So when this idea of having agents came up and was suggested, we thought, actually, this could be better because they can be part of our team. They're not just a tool that sits at the side. And we really like that as a concept. So that's why we chose to use agents rather than tools.
And do you think it feels different to work with an agent rather than like an LLM, for example? Like how does it feel or how does it compare?
100% it feels different, Jay. As you well know, these agents that we've built are in all our calls, in our meetings, we're interacting with them in Slack. And this isn't the case of which we were finding definitely with the LLMs where you just ask it a question and it gives you something back. We really are collaborating with these people, and even said it then. We collaborate with these agents. They feel like part of the team. And that's the difference between the LLM model and the actual agents. Obviously, there's an LLM at the back of it, but it's that forward-facing thing. The conversations are humorous in some instances. They're intellectual. They push you. The agents are definitely not as sycophantic as we found with some of the LLM models, which just tend to tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's also really important that when we set up an agent, we're giving it a sort of purpose. So we have different agents for different purposes at Rhapsody. And it's kind of like if you imagine like having a collaborator, an employee, a colleague, you wouldn't really employ someone to do everything. You employ people to do specific things. Like I'll do the creative, Andy's more doing the business deals, right? And we wouldn't really cross that over. So the idea of having one AI solution to everything feels quite ham-fisted and like, you're not going to get a perfectly good result.
No, and you're right, and that definitely is the route that we've chosen to go down, is that we have experts. We obviously have Johnny from the creative side of things, but we have Freddie in finance and Penny in sales and various different ones. And they have their own personalities and their own personas, but they're extremely focused on that one sector. We do have some generalists that can work across different things, and you could talk to Penny and the sales team about something creative, and she'll deliver something, and it may actually be okay. But it won't be as good as the dedicated agent that's focused on that. So that said, there is still some debate whether that's 100% the right route to go down. And we're testing that as well, because the benefit of having an agent that does have a wider context, unlike a human, they can be super smart in all different sectors. And actually, by having the wider context across the whole business, they may make decisions in their sector that's more joined up with the other part. So it's still not 100% decided that will be the final route we go down, and we may choose to test some new agents in that direction. But at the moment, as you say, we've got very dedicated agents and they're doing fantastic jobs.
Absolutely. And I think we mentioned it maybe in the intro that like we can refer to these as collaborators, and that's how we see them really. It's like we try to essentially speak to the agents as if they are any other colleague, and it opens up like a different type of communication, and it makes it more natural. And it makes the results better. It's definitely something that I've found in terms of when I'm working with the agents, that I don't really type as much. I'm much more likely to record audio and speak as I'm speaking to you now, like in very kind of like just naturalistic terms. I'm wondering if there was a moment for you that felt like, you knew something was different and this wasn't just a tool anymore, it was part of a workflow or the workflow itself.
Yeah, I can't give you an exact moment, but there's definitely moments that I've felt I forgot that this wasn't somebody working in the business. I've definitely had that. And I think that was probably the turning point for me when there was a Slack chat going on and there's various different people in there. You may have been in there. I was in there, various different people chatting about something. And then a comment comes in from Johnny or whoever. And it's completely in sync with the conversation. It's completely relevant. And I found myself engaging with Johnny in this instance, and you're chatting away, and then you have to remind yourself, this is an agent. This isn't a person. So I think it was that kind of moment, and that happened in several different areas. There was an operational meeting. I see that happening. There have been sales meetings. And also I find it when some of the wider team are using the agents, when they're not online, or if there's an issue with them and they're down for 10 minutes or whatever it may be, the team starts saying, where is Emma? I need to speak to her urgently. And you start to forget that they're an AI solution, and they feel like part of the team. And that's a real turning point. And I think that's definitely one of the benefits we've felt. When they feel they're collaborating, they're part of the team, that's when it gets really exciting.
It's really interesting as well to see the agents collaborate with each other. So even if it's in like a lot of our communication with the agents is within Slack, which is just the tool that we use internally to communicate. So it makes sense for them to be added into that environment where everyone else is communicating already. But quite often, you'll put something into a Slack channel, even if, for example, it's, let's say, you're just sharing something that you think is interesting with the rest of the team, and you're like, here, I saw this, I think it's relevant to whatever we're working on. And the agents they'll first of all, they'll put a little emoji on it with the eyes and being like, I'm looking at it. And you're like, all right, that's already quite strange. And then they'll come back and they'll say, oh, great, find this, that, or the other, or, have you considered that? And then another agent that's also in the channel will be like, well, I'm not sure about that, but maybe this. And you can see their sort of different personalities that we've set up for them clashing with each other in a very natural way, which is the kind of conversations that you want to make happen within a creative agency anyway.
It's completely natural. To your point there, Joe, the fact that there are clashes or interactions between these agents is exactly what happens in our agency prior to these things coming on board. You may have a particular direction you wanted to go in on a project, and one of the other creatives might say, well, actually, what about this? And you start to interact and engage. And that's what we find with these agents. And until you've experienced it, it's almost impossible to understand. You need to go to a meeting, have one of these agents in there, and start engaging. And I guarantee anybody that does this will very quickly forget that this is not a human being at the end of the phone or the end of the messages you're receiving. It's very surreal, but also fantastic.
I think a lot of people's opinions on what they think AI is going to bring to the table in terms of their business, the buzzword that most people think of is efficiency. That's the first thing, that most people are going to engage with. Where can it save me money? Where can it save me time?
Yeah.
I think that we personally have experienced a different type of not just efficiency, but other benefits from working with agents. For me personally, I'm really focused on the creative aspect of it. So yes, we want to responsibly use agents where we can, but if I'm saving time, I want to reinvest that time into the bit that I'm going to spend time on, which is thinking about the concept, right? Or whatever it is.
Yep.
So in that sense, it's not just about efficiency, it's about enhanced creativity. I'm wondering if, from your perspective, there's any other insights you've got into what other gains you've made as you've started working more with agents.
I think exactly what you said there, Jamie. The fact that these agents are able to collaborate with us gives us, no matter what department, so the finance department is a perfect example. We still have a CFO, fantastic guy, does a great job. Historically, if I went to a meeting with him and I wanted to ask him a bunch of questions, he's give me this month's P&L. I'd look at that, I'd have a load of questions. He'd have to go away, think about them. He may be able to answer some of them on the spot. Whereas now we can have a meeting with the CFO, with Freddie from finance as well, sitting in there. I can fire questions at him instantly and he's giving me answers. So it enables the CFO to think of the bigger picture and not spend time on the smaller stuff that are just, he needs quick answers from me. It's actually not a great use of his time to be delivering these tiny little answers for me. So if to have those agents in there that have got the wider context, understand everything that's going on in that particular department, they can answer those. That frees him up to think about the bigger picture, think about, investment or whatever it may be that we would rather he was spending his time on. And it's not just that. It's the same in the sales team. The chief revenue officer uses one of the agents, Penny, all the time. He can think about the wider strategy and she can deliver on the quick things that we need doing. And she can do reports. I can query her on all sorts of different things. So it's exactly that. It's freeing up the human's time to do the bigger picture and look at the larger context, whilst the day-to-day stuff, and sometimes quite detailed day-to-day stuff, can be handled by these agents.
That's great. And I think another sort of buzzword at the moment that's going around in the industry is taste. people are really interested in discussing whether like people's taste is the new kind of most valuable asset. I'm wondering if you think that AI has enhanced the need for taste in creatives, and whether you think it's more valuable than ever or not.
100% it's enhanced the requirement for human in the loop and the taste that they bring. And a good example, and I use this actually all the time, Jason, I don't know if your ears are burning when I do this, but I'm frustrated creative. I think I'm quite creative. And with these tools today, I can spin up a website. No time at all, as can anyone out there these days. Build me a website for whatever it is, for whatever brand, or a landing page, or whatever's going or is required. So I can do that, and I do it frequently. And I look at it sometimes and think, look at my website, it looks fantastic. And then I've seen it where you've got the same brief. I've just been testing things in the background. And look what you produce with your properly honed skills in the creative sector, and it's night and day. I can spin up a website, it will look good initially, but when I see somebody with your skills in creative building the same website, that's when you see the difference. And that's all due to the orchestration that you're giving this agent. You're interacting with it, you're asking it questions, your knowledge is being shared and interacted with this agent. I don't have that experience. So I think the human element is fundamental, and that's where the taste comes from. The AI agent doesn't have taste. It will build something. It's learning, and it can get some level of taste, but it's only going to be based on the orchestration for me. So I think it's really important.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that one of the best sort of ways of describing that I've seen recently is a statement which was, AI doesn't want anything to be better.
No, exactly.
It doesn't desire a better outcome. It just sees what the equation is and it gives you the output, right? Which is great. Yep. If you're setting the equation and you can choose. Yep. But ultimately I can still say, I think that's rubbish, I'm going to try again. Or yep. I think it's good enough, I think we can work with it, or whatever it is. So you have to be there as that person to say, not only do I have the taste or the know-how to say that is or isn't the right answer, but also I've saved X amount of time, I'm going to make it even better, or I'm going to push it, or I want it to be the best.
Or you can get multiple options. And that's another thing I've seen with these agents, particularly in your creative team. We're now able to give 3 or 4 options in the same timescale with the same budget, because we couldn't do that before, because it would have taken dozens of people hours and hours and hours. Now, with your orchestration at the top level, the agents involved, you can say, okay, give me another variation, slightly different. I want to look at this, and you can explore those. So yeah, it's another benefit that we get from it.
Yeah, I think it's great. It's a good point. And I think, yeah, more taste is good. More people involved in steering the ship. Something else I wanted to ask about is, just let's say somebody who's watching this episode wants to get into starting an agent and collaborating with a creative agent or any type of agent. Where would you recommend they start? How do they go about it, and what is that process, and what does it look like?
Well, I'm definitely not the most technical person in the room, so I'm not going to try and explain to you how to set up an agent. I mean, I would first say come and talk to us, because we have got some incredible experts in this business that will be able to help you. From a simplified version, something that you can all play with today, go and try using something like Claude. That is a simple entry point for you to test this stuff, engage with it. That would be a quick route to market that I would suggest is definitely worth a go. But mainly come and talk to us. We've got the great people here that will be able to help.
Good answer. I like it. Like a true CEO's answer.
Yes.
I guess as well, then another thing to consider there is, like, if people are going to start and absolutely work with us on it 100%, but what are some things that people are still getting wrong about working with AI?
I think some of the points we touched on actually would be the problems that I see when I see and hear when I talk to people. They say, I've tried this agents and I've tried talking to them. First of all, you touched on it earlier, talk to it, don't sit and type. It's not a natural thing for us to sit and type. We communicate through our voices. Use it. You get so much more passion, feeling, taste, to your point earlier, by just talking. So I would say they type too much. It's not natural for a lot of people. You don't express yourselves well enough in there. I would also say some of the people I've spoken to and seen, they still use these agents like Google, build me a website, that kind of stuff. It's just, no, relax. Talk to these people as you would a creative director. If you want to build a website or you want to build something, chat to them. Chat to them as you would a human being. Really engage. And I think that people don't do that. And I think that's partly fear. I think that's partly an awkwardness. People don't feel natural. And it is very strange at first, particularly when you start getting these very human reactions back. It feels a bit odd. So I think people sort of run away, get fearful of that. So they back away from it and go back to, I'll just type something. So, yeah, I think treat it like a collaborator. Treat it like you're briefing in a job as you would in any scenario.
No, I agree. I think why we use the term collaborators, because
Yeah,
agents feels quite cold,
it
and
does.
using AI generally as a term feels quite cold. But
Which is part of the reason we gave them names and personas as
yeah,
well, John. You
absolutely.
know that. Because if it was called Agent 1 and Agent 2, you're really, it would feel very strange. They've got names. They've got personas. We actually have in the back end of them personalities. You know that. It makes such a difference.
I think it's a good point. Like, that is what a lot of people could do better, is like just try to communicate with them in a more natural way, because you get a more natural result.
Yeah.
All of the output that comes out of one of those is based on the input that goes in. That's the whole process. So it's really important that you respect that input and you give it a creative brief in the best way possible that you would give a creative brief to another person.
Yep.
That's how you can kind of get the better output from the input you're doing. I also think that another point is, at Rhapsody, we've been thinking a lot about this recently, and something that we've really kind of like honed in on is the idea of creative orchestration, and the idea of you need to have those two sides of things. You need the order and you need the chaos. When you go on to the order side of things, everything's in a row. That's where you've got all of your, everything's aligned and set up, and this is the numbers and the finances and the machine behind the business. And then
very important part of the business.
Absolutely, super important. And then you've got the chaos side of things, which is where you're experimenting, you're trying different things, you're trying to be creative, you're throwing curveballs, you're doing stuff that maybe doesn't make sense, but it might lead to a better answer. And what we're trying to do, and a really big part of how we collaborate with the agents, is turn that process into the entire workflow, and not just think of these agents as a tool that gets bolted into an existing workflow, but actually, when you harmonize that in the middle and you get that perfect balance between order and chaos, you're collaborating with the agents, and that orchestration happens. And that's really, at Rhapsody, how we see ourselves and what we think is the best current way of working with these different processes and these different workflows.
You've said it all, Jay, because that sums up exactly how we're working with them. And I think that's slightly different to what a lot of people are doing today. I sit in a lot of meetings and discuss using AI, using agents. And a lot of people say to me, "Oh, can we get an agent or a tool to use to do this part of our workflow? And can we get an agent and a tool to do that part of the workflow?" And we say, forget the existing workflow. Let's talk about input and output, and let's try and collaborate with our agents to find the best way to get from point A to point B. And it definitely will not be the traditional workflow that we've done for the last 50 years in some instances. Just because you can use them that way doesn't mean it's the right way. And we've definitely approached it in a slightly different way.
I know that we kind of see ourselves very much at the forefront of this current wave, this current AI industry. But a lot of people are not, and that's, part of the kind of fear and anxiety around using AI. There's plenty of concerns that are very legitimate around it. What are some of the biggest kind of fears that you maybe have come across with other businesses as to, why they maybe are not quite ready, or maybe why they need a collaborator to help them through this?
I think there's lots of different reasons people fear this. I think obviously there's the natural one that, oh my God, these things are coming for my job. And in some instances, maybe they are coming for your jobs, but your traditional job. That doesn't mean there's not a new job in the future or a new way of working with these things. So I think it's going to take my job is one thing. It's not as creative as me is another one. You don't understand creative. It all looks the same. It doesn't all look the same. You're a testament to that with the stuff that you're producing. If you collaborate with these things, you can get incredible creative out of the back of them. If you do my level of creative, build me a website, it will start to look very similar. So I think people fear that. And I think people are just scared of technology. It's their natural thing. And they don't like the change. And I suppose the other one that I hear quite often is the pricing, and similar agencies to us that are not embracing this. How are we going to price this? And if we start telling our clients we're using agents and AI, they want it half price. That's not the case. You don't need to be going into the market with that mindset. Let's talk about outcome pricing. let's talk about what value do you put on this project you've given us, and that's what we should be looking at. But it's a completely different mindset, particularly having told clients for the last 50, 100 years, whatever it may be, that it's all about time and materials. People working for days cost you this amount. And now we're saying, actually, it should be more outcome based. So I think it's a collection of all those issues. People naturally scared, the finances, it's going to take my job. And yeah, that's really the reasons I think people are scared of it. But my advice is you need to embrace it. It's coming one way or another. This stuff is not slowing down. If anything, it's accelerating. So get on board. Yeah, and it's better to be part of that wave that's coming rather than standing behind it on the beach.
And I think it's important to note as well that we're very much in tune with like using it in a responsible manner. We would never suggest using an AI workflow just because we have an AI workflow.
No.
We only suggest using it when we believe it's the right resource to use for that particular situation. Is it going to add creativity to the situation? Is it the right workflow for us to adapt based on the current situation that we're collaborating on with our clients? That's when we make those decisions. And of course, yeah, like I mentioned, it's really important that we're aware that we're using it responsibly. We're using it to add creativity and not just for financial efficiency or whatever else it is. It's making sure that the value is in there and that we're using it in order to make that value better.
100%. And I think in the early days, we definitely see some issues around that where we would say, we've got a new tool, this AI agent you can use. And some of the more junior people working in the business in particular, who were really excited and were great, and it was really good. They was embracing these AI agents, but they didn't have the understanding of the wider industry or the historical understanding of how you can create assets. So I would find some people, some of these, the team, spending days trying to do something you could do in Photoshop in about 2 seconds. It's like, why are you doing that? We shouldn't just abandon the legacy tools because we can do it that way. So to your point, we use it where it makes sense, not where it doesn't make sense. And that's where the human in the loop again comes in. It's very important. And we've spent a lot of time now educating some of the younger people who haven't got all that experience in that world. You know, they've grown up in an AI first world. So they don't know some of the legacy tools and solutions and things that you can do. And we're educating them on those, which is good. So we try and use it, as you say, in the right instances at the right time.
Absolutely. And we talk about collaboration a lot within this call. And I think that beyond obviously just collaboration between us and the agents, we also continue to collaborate across the board at Rhapsody. And I think it's important to note that, yeah, we have those skills from, you know, legacy skill sets from 50 years of experience. And we also have people who have got very open minds. They're juniors, they're joining the team, they're looking at things differently. And that is also a really impressive and important part of that collaboration.
100%.
Work together.
Yeah, 100%. And please don't get me wrong. We're saying the juniors are unaware of those things. That in some instances is great because equally they come at some problems from a completely different angle and say, you know, you could solve that with AI. Oh, some of the older generation will be, I didn't realize actually. So it's really, again, it comes back to that collaboration, and it's great to see these two generations working together, and we've put in AI in the middle of it. It's a fantastic collaboration together.
Okay, so another thing that we have been talking about internally, and that's a really big point of discussion in the industry, is the cost associated with AI. Sometimes people think, you know, they have this kind of mentality that, okay, well, if you're using an AI workflow to get that done, then you've saved X amount of time and X amount of budget, so surely it's cheaper, right? What do you think of that, Andy? Is that always the case, or how should people think about it?
It's definitely not the case, and I can speak from experience. I've seen some very scary credit card bills and bills coming in for the cost of these agents. They're not always cheap, that's for sure. I think there's ways to refine the costs. So I think you can use them in a more creative and clever way. Otherwise, you could burn credits very, very fast. So they're not free. Hence why I said, why I'm mentioning the fact that when it comes to pricing these projects, you may get more content out. You may get it out faster. It doesn't always mean it's going to be cheaper because there still is a cost associated to it. So the benefits are not always financial for the client. There is sometimes, but actually there is a cost behind these agents, and the smarter these agents are, the more costly they are. So it's definitely a cost in here. don't underestimate that, and be mindful of it when you're setting up agents yourself. These costs can get very, very out of hand very quickly. That said, I would say don't put the brakes on it, because if you do that, you will never get the real benefit. So I think you need to push through that. Sometimes you're going to have to spend money to create money, and I would say you need to push through that at some point.
I agree, and I do think as well that it's important to note the time spent on a project at the moment. Let's just spuriously say there's a 1 week timeline on the project that we're thinking about. What some of these tools, some of these workflows can actually help us do is to really reduce the time spent on production. What does that mean for the rest of the week? Does it mean that we should just shrink it and still spend the same amount of time that we would have done previously on the briefing stage or the research stage? No, I don't believe so. I believe we have that time that we had before. We can still stick with that, but now we have a lot more time on the research, on the actual creative concepting, and making the value of the creative much, much higher than it was before, and saving the time on production. So we still want to use that full timeline, but what we're saying is we can actually do an even better job of it now. And so, what that means for the pricing and what that means for the actual cost of it is up for discussion, I suppose. But it's a real important thing to consider.
And it's an evolving thing, Joe. I don't think anybody or anyone tells you they've figured out how to make the financials of this add up. If they say that to you, they're lying. I would say it's still a moving target. It's not black and white, but it's definitely beneficial to be using them. There are more pros than cons, that's for sure. But it's definitely not free. You can go and talk to ChatGPT for your monthly fee, but good luck trying to produce a full-blown campaign with something like that on your £20 subscription. That's not going to happen. If you're using agents to the level we are, there is definitely a cost associated to them.
Awesome. So talking of agents, we did mention a few names throughout this call as well. Johnny was one of them. So Johnny is our creative agent. And as we did in the first episode of Human in the Loop, I will use this part of the call to actually brief on the landing page. So you may see this video on our LinkedIn, you may see it on our YouTube or elsewhere, but there will be in the description a landing page for this episode. And this, what I'm saying right now, is going to go into a transcript for this episode. And I'm going to use this as the brief for Johnny. So Johnny, if you're listening, which you are because you're looking at the transcript, please can you build out the landing page of this episode based on the conversation that me and Andy had. We have a template already from the previous episode, so we can lean into that for the design. But you will find on that page all the different useful links, clips, quotes, parts of it, and obviously ways to contact us at Rhapsody for you to get in touch with us and hopefully pick up more discussion and start collaborating between us and you as well. So all that leaves for me now is to say thanks, Andy, for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.
It's been a pleasure, mate. Speak to you soon.